The grammar of PowerPoint. In this video, we're going to talk about transitions and how to use them effectively in PowerPoint to convey grammatical meaning and relationships between slides. The Transitions button is located in the top ribbon between Design and Animations. But before we even get into this, you may be wondering or asking, why even use transitions? One of the key reasons is because when slides change abruptly, it can seem jarring and arbitrary for audiences. Snap, we got Nick Cage in Con Air. Snap, we got Nick Cage in Face Off. Snap, we have Nick Cage in The Wicker Man. Snap, we're back to our slide. And when these changes happen so quickly and abruptly, it can be distracting for the audiences. But the transitions can make the shifts between slides more organic. And like animations, they can show a relationship between ideas, specifically between one slide and another. Finally, the motion captures the viewer's attention. The question, though, becomes, which transitions should I use? There are a great many transitions to choose from. However, I typically go with 4 key transitions. The first is push. Now push up, push left, push right, push down. You can use any of those 4 directions. We also have uncover and cover, as well as rotate. But let's take a look at each of these and see how they function. First, we're going to look at the push transition. Now this is the one that I use most often. But why? Well, there's several reasons. First, we want to understand that this is ideal when the slides share the same colors along the borders. If there's different colors, the transition looks a little more abrupt, but when they're the same, it's almost as if they blend together, and it creates this conveyor belt of ideas. Now, when the reader sees the conveyor belt pushing along, this suggests that the ideas are linked to or building on each other. As a result, it's great when moving from one idea to another within the same subsection of a presentation. Next, we're going to look at the cover transition. This can be effective when consecutive slides are formatted in drastically different ways or have different colors around the borders. These differences can make a smoother transition like the push seem a little less organic because of the sharp contrast. So when you uncover or cover the slide, that makes it a little smoother. This can be particularly effective as a transition when you're moving from one subsection to another subsection, especially if you've color-coded each of the subsections. The uncover transition can also be effective for transitioning between slides that are drastically different, and it can likewise be used to transition to a new subsection. However, it is particularly useful when paired with the cover transition to introduce and close out a slide that functions as an aside within a subsection. For example, in an earlier video when I was talking about color coding, I mentioned the importance of avoiding colors that vibrate against each other. And I quickly drew on a slide that illustrated how colors vibrate. Then I pulled it by uncovering away and returning to the original slide. In this way, the reader can see that the slide coming in and then immediately leaving is simply an aside and that you're returning back to your key idea. The rotate transition is especially effective when there's major thematic shifts. As you can see from watching the transition, it does take a little more time for it to move over, which suggests to the reader a pause and a shift. This is especially helpful when transitioning between slides with borders that have different colors. For example, if we color code different themes within a PowerPoint slide, the rotate is effective because it'll actually blend and fade from one color to the next, making the transition seem smoother and more organic. When choosing a transition, pay attention to the effects options. You'll see under the transition tab, there's lots of transitions, but on the very right, there's the effects option. After you select a transition, click on Effects. For example, if you've chosen push, you can push up, push down, push to the right, or push to the left. Likewise, for rotate, you can rotate to the left, rotate to the right, rotate up, or rotate down. Caution, don't overdo it with the transitions. The purpose of the transition is to facilitate your message, not draw attention to themselves. Some folks, when they're experimenting, get a little excited and want to make their presentations a little more colorful, so they use more dramatic transitions. Fade in circle. Ta-da! We have a screen or slide that has been dramatically uncovered by a superfluous curtain pull. An origami crane has flown away to present our next idea. Shattered glass. Checkered board. What time is it? What's wrong with these transitions? Well, for one, they are distracting. If your audience sees an origami crane suddenly get folded up and fly away, they're going to be focused on the transition and not what you're about to say. We want them to focus on your message. Two, they're time consuming. You can see a lot of those transitions take 2 or 3 or 4 seconds, and that stalls your presentation. And finally, they seem unprofessional and almost childish, and you want to maintain that professional aura. So the question is, how do we avoid that? First, we want to stick to the basic transitions. Push, cover, uncover, rotate. The kinds of transitions that the audience isn't likely to even notice because they're so organic and smooth. Second, select quick transitions. We want to make sure that the transitions don't interrupt or slow down your presentation. And finally, use transitions that foster understanding and facilitate your message rather than those that distract from your meaning. We want the focus to be on your messaging. That's all we have for this episode of the Grammar of PowerPoint Transitions Edition. If you want to learn more about PowerPoint and how you can foster and facilitate the grammatical relationships between your ideas using the software, make sure you check out some of our other videos on PowerPoint. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.